Hi everybody, welcome back to Jimmy's First Gen Rescue. I'm Jimmy, and today is the day that some of you guys, some of you people, guys, women, been waiting for. I am going to start the changing of the clutch process on our 2003 blue and white Mini hardtop. It's a 2003 Mini Cooper S model, 6-speed transmission manual, and let's see, it has 112,936 miles on it, or thereabouts. So there's two major issues with that car. One being the clutch. When I was going to get my inspection, the clutch went out and had to get towed back home. And two, the iPod connection doesn't work. So clutch first, iPod second, or later. I'm going to show you what I got to do and where I'm going to do it. And the only thing I've done since the car has been brought back home on the tow truck is I disconnected the battery, and it's still in the car, but it's on a battery charger, on my trickle charger. So the battery's been being charged or maintained since the car has been parked, but it's disconnected. Anyway, I'm going to show you what I got to do, and what I'm going to do is going to be a couple of few days. This next week of weather for us here in Central Virginia is going to be good weather. I do everything outside, so I had to look for a good weather window, as well as some of you know, I am a beekeeper, and it was bee season, and I was catching swarms, and I was building a hive for my daughter's property in West Virginia, which I finally finished that. I'm going to show you that, put a picture or something in here so you can see that hive. It's a little bit whimsical, but that's going to be the hive that I establish and move up to West Virginia. However, today's video is mini clutch beginning. I don't know how many videos are going to be in this series because I have never changed the clutch before. The only thing I did do is take out the engine and transmission from the parts car. However, a lot of components were already removed over time on that parts car, so it's not like doing everything at one time. So that being said, I'm going to read today's fortune, and then I'm going to get you guys outside, show you my setup, or what I'm going to do to set up, and then I'm going to get started getting this car ready and see how far along I get today on this thing. But let's see, today's fortune. Okay, here we go. Inch by inch, life is a cinch. Yard by yard, life is hard. So you take that for what it's worth. Inch by inch, life's a cinch. Yard by yard, life is hard. Anyway, so that's today's fortune. So let's get outside and see what I'm going to do. Okay, this is the car that needs the transmission or clutch replacement. I'm going with the Vallejo clutch, not the original. So I'm taking the flywheel and everything else off of this car as well. I moved the van out of the way, and with the parts car no longer here, I moved the orange car, you can see orange through there, back where the parts car was, and the blue car is now where the orange car was. And those two up there are the ones I drive now. I got my notebook in my hand. I got 4 pages of notes for just removing the clutch. So I'll be referring to my notes. But let me show you something. When I went to the dealership, the last video, they did the AC on this car. Everything was fine. It recharged fine. This one, they gave me a laundry list of things that needed to be replaced or repaired. Something I did not video is I got the hood released. I ended up replacing the engine mount. It was horrible. It was completely pancaked down, and I was feeling every vibration of this engine. when we were driving. Please excuse the wind. It's a little windy. Anyway, I didn't video it, but there's only like 8 bolts to take off, and then the hardest one is there's a E14, which is a reverse Torx underneath for the bottom. You got to get to it behind the wheel. You don't have to take the wheel off. You just pull the little flap back, and you'll see the bolt back there. But it's an E14. To remove that one bolt, you remove the grounding strap here. There's a side bolt here, it's a 16 millimeter. This one is 13, I believe. But there's a side bolt here that's a 16 millimeter. And then for this bracket, this is an 18 millimeter. And here, there's 2 16 millimeters. One there, where my big finger is, one there in the front. And in the back, there's also 2 right there. That one and that one. So, and then you definitely have to support the engine with a jack, just so the engine doesn't fall down. You jack your jack up right under the oil pan with a little block of wood, hold the engine in place, and then you can remove everything. And it took me like 40 minutes. So that was that. Car 100% smoother from the get-go. Anyway, I didn't video it. It's not necessary. I'm gonna check on this blue car, I'll check the motor mount. But anything else that needs to be replaced on this car will get done during this same service. Now this is a different one. This is an early 2003. It's not liquid cooled, it's a rubber mount. And yeah, I don't like it. I'll replace this. But anyway, that will come later. So, what I have to do is, this car's got to go up on 4 jack stands. So you know my system for that. I got 4 pavers I'll put down. I try to get the front of the car jacked up as high as possible. The back of the car, the jacks can be lower, maybe the first notch on the jack stands. But the front, you want it as high as possible because you got to get the transmission out. And it usually, you're going to have to wiggle it here. And also you got to drop the subframe on this car. So, but today's video, I'm going to get the car jacked up and in place with my concrete pavers. I'm going to try to get the car at least in front end service mode by the end of the day, or by the time the end of my working day on this car. I have some other things to do. And then I'll get my plywood down, because I'm going to have to use the jack to roll around and roll the subframe out, roll the transmission out, things like that. So I'm going to get this, my goal for today is just to get this car completely set up to be worked on. And tomorrow I'll have a full day where I can actually start complete disassembly of to get the transmission out. Just in general, you remove the radiator and the cooling package. So I'm gonna have to drain that system. I got to drain the gear oil out of the transmission. The AC package can move to the side once the bumper is removed. Bumper and the aluminum bumper behind it. I take off the intercooler, or according to the couple of YouTube videos I've watched. Shout out to Mod Mini, MODMINI. I watched his video a few times. You take off your snorkel, you take off your air box, your engine control computer. You got to remove your transmission mount. I see I had a critter in here. That's not good. I had some spray that would deter critters and some stuff, but anyway. You see my battery mod. That's the battery being charged. But it is disconnected because you got to take the starter out of the car, or just loosen the starter. And then all of the bolts that hold the transmission on. So you want to clear up this area here because your transmission is located under here. Your shift linkage is in the back. And yeah, and this car's got the xenon headlights. So I'll show you that when it comes to the lower control arms and all of that stuff. Anyway, I'm going to set you guys up. I'm going to run it in like fast motion or whatever, and show you getting the car jacked up and ready. I've got these jacking pads. They're called jack pad. I can't remember where I got them from. Let me show you. And they sit on top of your jack stands, and the little rectangle part fits up inside the jack pads of the on the Mini Cooper. I think on the BMW as well, but they sit on here and kind of distribute the load. So I've got 4 of them. I went in the storeroom and got them. Since the car is going to be on these jack stands for quite a while, 3 or 4 days, I use the jack pads. So just wanted to let you know that. Okay, she's solid, she's on there, she's not falling off, we're good to go. Okay, what I did was I went and gathered a few tools just to do the front end service mode, and I'm going to keep my bolts and everything separated and labeled because this is I've got a lot of things to take off. Where I can put the bolts back and hold the place, I will do that so that I know where they go when it's time to put it back. However, if they just, like, I'm removing everything here, I'll put the bolts in like a lock and lock container and a piece of paper in here that says what it is, and I'll just stick it in my van. I'm using the van as storage and I guess, you know, like a portable tool area. So I just got the tools that I need for this front end service, and I'm getting ready to put that in, put the car in front end service. Mine a T30. The book says T25, mine says T30. I've got to take the crash tubes off. There's two 16 millimeters underneath, and usually a 10 millimeter up here that goes in this way. However, all of the auction cars that I bought, that 10 millimeter is missing. So, and it doesn't affect anything. It just helps align it. But with that aluminum cover, you align it anyway. So, anyway. Oh. Sometimes when you take those crash tubes off, you get this, got a wasp. Oh, I got a wasp nest. Anyway, I had a wasp. You get these behind the crash tube. You don't have to put them back. They're just for when the car was initially assembled. So you can throw those away. I no longer have a wasp nest. Now all I gotta do is kill the wasp. Okay, next is the fan shroud. The condenser gets to be moved down. Get the radiator, but I gotta drain the radiator. We can loosen up the radiator cap. I'm gonna put all new radiator fluid in, so I'm not gonna worry about it. But I'll catch it in a bucket. That's a 10 mil. Okay, real quick, what I did in video, which I thought I did, but I didn't, but I took the inner wheel well fender, the plastic piece off. Let me go show you. It's totally not necessary to remove this. However, for me, first time, it makes it easier to see what I got going on in here, access. And all it is you got 8 of these little screw push pin things and 2 Phillips head screws. The 2 Phillips heads are at the top and here. So it'll be like right up under here and right over here. And then the rest is just around. But some people just remove the 5 in the front and fold it back. But to me, it's just easier to remove the whole thing. On the other side, I'm gonna get that. On the other side, I'm just gonna disconnect it from the front so I can pull the front off. No need to remove it. Anyway, that's it. I'm gonna find this wasp. Okay, what you see now is the minis, first generation. I don't know about second or third or whatever, but there's no drain plug on the radiator. So you have to disconnect the bottom radiator hose to drain it, which I did. I loosened up the cap on the tank. And there's a bleed screw right here. I opened up the bleed screw, helped the water get out. I put a couple of temporary bolts back here just to hold it from falling while I was jiggling the hose. But I can remove these now. And some people, I think it's an M6 bolt. 4 of these are nuts that hold the aluminum bumper on, and 1 is a screw, a bolt. Some people buy like an M6 bolt. I think it's an M6, maybe 4-inch long, so you can put it in and then slide this out, but it's still, it's not gonna fall. Maybe I'll pick up some next time I'm at Lowe's, a couple of M6 bolts, like 4-inch long, and see if that'll work. Anyway, radiator's pretty much drained. Now, that's the hose. There's still gonna be water in the radiator when you pull this off, so be careful the way you tilt it. But I gotta remove the top radiator hose, and then I'll pull the radiator off. Put my bolts back. I meant to say this. One thing that causes me a little bit of concern, just a little bit, is that this car was a Minnesota car. Like our Subaru, when I work on it, those of you who see that, there's hardly any rust at all. I did notice some rust on the subframe under here. So when I get it apart, I'm gonna clean all of that off. And I'll probably go ahead and, I think I already did the bushings on here. But I'm gonna clean all the rust off, and I might repaint it, like pressure wash it, repaint it, and reseal it. But that's it. There's no body rust. It's just surface rust mainly. I think this car had been kept in the garage when it was in Minnesota. Yeah. Oh, and right now, I'm getting ready to take this radiator core support off. I gotta pull my wires through and disconnect the horn, which is here. Okay, and shove these through. And then also don't forget, if you have fog lights, which we do, you shove these through. You disconnect the fog lights from the back here. Okay, and the last part is the fan. There we go. Disconnect the fan, the electric fan. Could have stayed connected, but that's okay. Oh, it's broke. There you go. Alrighty. Let's get this out of here. Again, you don't have to discharge your AC condenser. You just push it over here on the side. Radiator out with the radiator support. This hose may leak a little bit longer, so I'm just going to take it and turn it up. Tuck it in for now. And I'm going to dump the radiator water out into my bucket. All right, this is officially front end service mode. So I'm gonna turn you guys around and let you see the front. So if you had to do supercharger service, you would take the belt off, pull the supercharger bolts. You got to pull the intercooler here, your air intake here, and then there's another bolt that fits this way that goes in. That's part of your pulley system. You pull that bolt. You can't, it's captured by the frame, but you can pull it out enough to where you can remove the supercharger. Then you can do your supercharger service. Be careful with these red clips here. I've got a few extra in the storeroom. However, you don't want to break those. Okay, transmission is over there, here. These bolts, they're all, what is it, 15 mil for transmission bolts, but I got to get a bunch of stuff off over here. So, what I'm going to do right now is, before I start that, I'm going to get my air compressor, pump it up, and blow out some of this stuff where these critters were. So you don't need to see that. Okay, laying on the ground under the car, you really can't see much under there. But let me tell you what I did. I took the power steering cooling fan off. It's two 13 mil bolts and one plug. You unplug it, pull it out. I took the lower engine mount off. There's one bolt that goes through here, and I believe it's a 15 or 16 mil, not sure. Then there's four that go here, and they're 13 mil. And so I took that off. Also, I drained the gear oil from the transmission, because once you take the axle shafts out and you start wiggling the transmission around, you don't want that gear oil to spill out. So I drained the gear oil. That's pretty much all I did under here. The next step is to take off the subframe. So there's 5 bolts each side. They're either 15 mil or 16 mil. I'll put that up there. But there's 5 bolts on each side. But you got to take the lower control arm, the sway bar end link, and the outer tie rod off on both sides of the car. Then you can, once those are loose, you can start with the 5 bolts on each side for the subframe. You put your jack under the subframe. There's a little hole in the subframe that's kind of like a centering point. So you put your piece of wood, your jack, and then you'll be able to pull it out. However, before I do that, I'm gonna do the tie rod ends and all of those things, and then I'll put my plywood down before I use my jack, because it'll run smoother. Anyway, but today I think I'm gonna call this quits for now. And I got the front end done. I got the air box out. I got excess up here. Drained the radiator. I didn't disconnect anything from the transmission, as far as you have the reverse switch, the reverse light switch down here. Also on this lower control arm on the driver's side, I have the xenon headlights, so there's a self-leveling switch there. You got to make sure you disconnect that. The shift linkage here and the steering linkage up here. All of this is for the subframe. The steering linkage is for the subframe, but not the shift linkage. That's for the transmission. Also the reservoir for your power steering fluid. There's a 10 mil bolt nut that you take off, and you just let the reservoir sink down with the subframe, so you don't disconnect that system. But for now, I'm going to call this a day. I finally killed that wasp that was there. The nest is gone. I got rid of the wasp nest, but I got rid of the wasp as well. So anyway, that's it for day one. It's probably been, for me, 4 hours off and on, if you don't count getting up, going to get some tool that I didn't have out here, and going back and forth, taking breaks, going in the house, things like that. So a lot of the things I put back in place, this bracket here, so that I'm not having too many loose screws in the van where I'm storing everything. All right, that's it for now. I may wire this up with a zip tie just to get it out of the way. And yeah. Anyway, it was still a bit early, so I decided to take all of the steering, the lower control arm, the tie rod ends for the sway bar, and the steering tie rod end and the sway bar end link off. I unplugged the headlight level, sensor level. If you don't have xenon trackable headlights, you don't have that, I did that on both sides. I've got almost everything ready to drop the subframe. However, I got to do the power steering reservoir, take that loose. I got the steering loose, the between the steering wheel and the rack and pin, the rack steering. I got that loose. Yeah, so I think I'm gonna put I got my plywood sitting here, and slide my plywood under, and then I'm gonna start loosening up the bolts for the subframe. Anyway, yeah. Okay, I think I got everything loose to get the subframe out, with the exception of the power plug on the power steering. But I'm gonna lower the subframe. I got the bolts are kind of loose, but I'm gonna support it, take the bolts out, lower it a little bit so I can reach easier, and unplug the power steering, and then pull it on out. Subframe is out. Wowza. That's it for day one. About 6 hours. And max. Okay, everybody. Yesterday I didn't really close out the video. I was running late. I was tired. So today I'm gonna give you a quick update on the progress here. And I'm not really doing much work today. I did go to the store to get some things that I need because of just some things that I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna inform you right now. However, everything is pretty much loose for the transmission. There's 3 bolts holding the transmission up in place, as well as the transmission mount over here. I don't have it supported yet because I want to be able to close the hood until I'm ready to reassemble. Hang on, school bus going by. Okay, so I don't want to put the engine support brace on until time to remove the transmission and everything. I ordered some parts. When you replace the 6-speed transmission, there's the a little tube that's a replaceable wearable item. The actual forks for the throwout bearing is a repairable item, as well as there's some bushings. So I ordered all of those. They'll be coming in a few days, so I don't want to take it apart until that until that comes in. In the meantime, I'm gonna clean up the subframe, and because it's a car that I got from Minnesota, it has some surface rust, so I got some wire wheels, and I'm gonna clean it up and repaint it. Pretty much replace every bushing on there while it's out, might as well. And I also have one power steering hose that needs to be replaced. Other than that, so this car is gonna sit for a couple of days, maybe a week, depends on when I get my parts. I got a couple of extra tools that I didn't have that I might need. And yeah, so that's where I'm at. I'm gonna show you the subframe here in a sec. Okay, this is why I wanna clean all of this off. It's just surface rust. It's flaky, but look how bad this bushing here. The casing for the bushing. So get rid of all of that. Go ahead. These bushings are coming new. I'm gonna get the bushings there. I'm getting new A-arms on both sides. All of the bushings here, ball joints, the inner ball joints, the outer ball joints, the whole works. Oh, now this is looking from I'm at the back of the car. Then that's the front of the car. On the driver's side, if you have, this is sway bar, but if you have the xenon headlights that are auto leveling, this is the mechanism here. So it's held on with a bracket, and then it's got this bracket here as well. So you got to make sure you replace that. But unplug that if you're not replacing it. Just unplug it when you go to drop your subframe. Okay, what else? Yeah, like I said, this hose will be replaced. So it's just the one. This one is pretty good shape, not replacing it. And the electric motor in here is in good shape, not replacing it. But I'm gonna clean off all of this stuff and spray it down with some parts cleaner, get it cleaned up, and then get it wire wheeled and painted up. So yeah. So it's going to take a few days to get some parts, but I do have the ball joints, but I'm still going to wait on the lower control arms, get those. But I'll do some of the disassembly while I wait. And again, the engine. So I am going to have to take off this belt. I actually took off the inner fender well plastic on this side. You do it the same as you do on the other side. I took it off because you don't have to remove the shaft. You just unbolt it, pull it out, and spin this whole assembly around and just get it out of your way. You do that on both sides. So you don't actually have to remove the shaft in order to get it. You just pull it out of the transmission. And since your steering is disconnected, as well as your lower ball joint is disconnected, this moves. So it's easy and it spins. So no big deal. Now, if you're going to replace your shaft, this is a great time to do it. Replace your axle shafts. These are in good shape. They're not leaking. The boots look good. So these shafts are not being replaced at this time. And if you got to replace shafts, it's not that hard of a deal once the car is just back together. So, but I'll get under there and I'll use some brake cleaner and clean all of the parts. But yeah, I think I am going to change the oil pan gasket, and I'll check the other gasket in the back there, and give it a good cleanup. And I've been using the van, like I said, as my parts, small parts, computer for the engine, for the car is in here, in the airbox. So a lot of the small bits and pieces with the screws intact so that I know where they go back. Just got some new, just wire wheels, went to Harbor Freight. I'll put it on a drill and I'll clean that up. I have a bushing tool in here, because I'm putting I'm putting these Power Flex bushings in. So, but here's ball joints, both inner and outer ball joints. So, you know, special paint for a special project. But I have the black paint, chassis paint for the subframe. Okay, that's it. I'm gonna be on hold for a little while. No big deal, but it's in the works. So stay tuned for part 2. Okay, everybody. So even though this is a lot of work, 2 things. I don't have to drive this car every day, or I don't have to have it ready to go anywhere at all. So I can take my time and fix it. And so yeah. So those of y'all with minis, even though this is a whole lot of work, have fun with your minis. Stay tuned for the next part.